Hey juniors, it's Mrs. Kemp. I just wanted to take that opportunity to actually talk to you guys about some pretty important things that are going to be coming up for you heading into the fall with applying to colleges. Normally I would go into like your junior English or your world cultures classes and go over a lot of this information. And since, we can't really do that, I thought I'd wait till now to make this video as, you guys will have a little bit more time now that school's getting done to actually watch it and start doing some of the things that I recommend and taking time to look through some of this information. I also know that many of you probably have done some of this stuff already, and that's awesome. You guys are kind of at all different points in your understanding and your experience in this with different families. And some of you have older siblings and have gone through this college application process. Some of you have not. So as always, please know if you have any questions as you start looking at some of this stuff, please let me know. So I'm going to screen share here a second so I can show you a PowerPoint I have. All right, so yeah, what do you need to know now? First, I just wanted to talk about ACT a little bit. And again, I'm so sorry with all this COVID and what you guys had to deal with not being able to take the ACT. I do know many of you had signed up to take the June 13th test date. As far as I know right now, they were still planning to do the June 13th test date. However, there were still some locations that you signed up, because when you signed up to take a national testing site, the ones that are on Saturdays that I've emailed you guys previously about, they have the different sites that you got to pick. So I will hope that many of you found a site nearby, probably over in La Crosse, most likely. But some of those sites were going to determine individually if they would be able to abide by the social distancing restrictions and things. So it's really going to vary by site. If you had signed up for a testing site that was going to be canceled, they told us that you should be notified this week, if you haven't been already, that that testing site has been canceled. Please know that there is still another June or July 18th test date coming up that there's still time to sign up for. Also know that there'll be some testings in the fall, hopefully, if the COVID stuff is still not around. So just what I would recommend is be checking the ACT website itself to find out the latest updates on what's going on with the ACT testing. Please keep in mind that I know this is a super stressful and unprecedented time as you guys move into this period of your life and deciding on your future plans. A lot of the colleges I've heard from have said that they will move to a test optional admissions process, or they'll just extend the deadline. So whereas maybe you needed ACT by October, maybe you won't need it till February now, things like that. So colleges are being understanding and flexible and understand the situation that you guys are dealing with and the lack of tests available for you to be able to take for ACT. So if you guys, again, have any questions with ACT, please let me know. If you're a student who needs a fee waiver for ACT because you qualify for free and reduced lunch, also let me know. We have those available, and I just have to give you a code so you're able to take that test for free, only if you do qualify as a free and reduced student. So as always, I just want to recommend that you guys take a look at the Guidance Office webpage. There is so much information out there for you guys, and this is just a screenshot, but in the website, if you go under the College and Career tab, a lot of the documents I'm going to be sharing with you can be found there. Also, there's just a lot of other helpful resources and sites on here. So please use this as a resource. It's for you. I've tried to put as much as I could. And there's so much you can look at. So please go to this. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. This is linked on the main district website, so you can find it under, if you search for me, or if you go under Student Services, you should be able to find the High School Guidance Office page. All right, so what I actually wanted to talk about is kind of this process of applying to college and what this means for you guys. So first off, again, I know you guys are in different stages of where you're at in your planning for after high school. We've been talking about this a lot. We've been doing the MCIS stuff kind of up until the COVID thing started. So hopefully many of you have completed a lot of those tasks already. And if you haven't, that's okay. You can still do those. But there are different types of colleges if you're not aware. So, the two really big general ones that people seem to know more about are the 2-year colleges and the 4-year colleges. So of course the 2-year colleges might be a community or technical college. That's where you're really getting the hands-on degrees. You jump right into what you're wanting to do. Although some of the 2-year colleges do have now a lot of general programs. So if you wanted to start at a 2-year, get some of your generals knocked out, you could, and then look at transferring to a 4-year. So of course there are 4-year colleges then. That's where you're going to get your bachelor's degree. To jump back to the 2-year, if you go to a 2-year, there's usually several different options. You might get a diploma, which could be a semester's worth. You could get a certificate, which could be a year or semester's worth, or usually the associate's degree ends up being the full 2 years, maybe a little bit more sometimes. When you're jumping into the 4-year colleges, that's when you're working towards a bachelor's level degree. Within the colleges, there's also different universities. There's public and private. Of course, the difference in there might be size, or it could be cost. Of course, many people know private colleges or universities may cost more. There's also different military academies. You can look at different colleges that maybe are segregated by sex. So there's all girl or all boy schools. There's obviously different religious affiliated schools. So there's a lot of different options out there. And the point I wanted to show you is, one size doesn't fit all for everybody. So as I talk through the next things, really reflect on what matters to you and what you're looking for. And there's usually some kind of post-secondary schooling out there that can meet what you're looking for. Okay, so what to consider when you're actually choosing a college for yourself. So obviously size and location of school is pretty important. A lot of times I ask students, are you wanting to stay close to home, or are you wanting to get out of here? Because that can really help determine what's the appropriate school for you. Are you a student that likes one-on-one learning and wants relationships with your instructors? Okay, if you know that about yourself, awesome, then you're probably looking at doing a smaller type of school. Whereas if you're looking at a larger university, you might be somebody sitting in a lecture hall with 700 kids. And if you can learn that way, that's awesome. Then you're going to want to, consider a larger school. So size and location are pretty important things to consider and understand and reflect about yourself, what you think you need and the type of education you want. As I mentioned earlier, there's different types of programs. So whether you're looking for a certificate, a diploma, the 2-year, 4-year, private, public, the bachelor's degrees, things like that. Those are things you want to consider, what you want to do and what kind of education you need, and if the school has that or not. So obviously you don't want to, or don't need to go to a 4-year college if you want to be a welder and you only really need the diploma certificate from a technical college. So making sure you understand and know those things. Obviously what majors and programs they offer, the different admission criteria. So, if you know you're at a 3.0 and there's schools that require a 3.8, you have to consider that and whether or not that's the appropriate school for you or you can get in. So where do you stand within your current criteria, and how does that match the criteria the college requires for admission? Other really important things to consider, obviously paying for school. So what are the costs and scholarships available to you? I know the sticker cost of private schools can be pretty overwhelming, but just know there are other opportunities and things to help with that, grants and aids and scholarships. So, always consider all options, but obviously cost is going to be a huge thing you want to consider when choosing what school is appropriate for you. Other things to think about: housing, athletics. If you're somebody that knows what you want to do, so maybe participate in different student councils or different volunteer groups, those are important. Those are all things to ask the colleges. Do you have these types of clubs and groups that I want to be involved in? Maybe you're an athlete that's looking to play at the college level, and that's awesome. Is it a private school? Do you need to, register for the NAIA, or is it a school that's in a D1 program and you need to be registering for the NCAA, because within that there are certain requirements. So again, if athletics are important to you, make sure you're looking into the right areas. This one's interesting right now, you guys, but things to consider when you're choosing colleges would be visiting the school. I always encourage and recommend that you go and visit the campus. In our times now, that's quite difficult as most are closed. But the good news is a lot of them, several have already had online virtual tours, but many, many more, if not all, are heading in that direction to be able to offer virtual tours for you guys as you're not able to actually step foot on campus. If you can step on foot on campus and it's safe and you feel comfortable doing that, I'd still recommend that if at all possible. There's something to be said about stepping on campus and seeing, feel what it looks like, and you can get a sense if it's a right fit for you. Ask a lot of questions to the admissions counselors now more than ever, especially if you cannot actually attend and go to a college visit. Um, Ask if you can talk to current students that are attending the college. They can give you some insight on what it's actually like to be a student there, what they like, what they don't, things like that. So don't be shy to reach out and ask more than you normally would, as being there on campus is limited. You really do need to figure out what is important to you. And I know this can be hard because sometimes, what parents want for you might not match what you're wanting for yourself. And it really is about you and what you need, and what you're looking for, with the hopeful help and guidance from your parents. But it is figuring out what is important to you and then finding that right match in the college. There's a lot of resources out there for searching. So of course, we've used the MCIS one many, many times. You guys hopefully have looked at that school sort option. Let me know. I can always re-show you how to do that. But within MCIS, you go and you can plug in some of the things you might know. You might not know anything, and that's okay. It's still a great search engine. Otherwise, maybe you want to stay in Minnesota and you want to study nursing. You can plug those preferences into the MCIS school sort option, and it'll tell you what colleges match that. Maybe you want to go to Iowa and you want to get a bachelor's degree in psychology, but you really are interested in some specific intramural. You could put that intramural in and see what schools in Iowa have that. So again, you can tailor, if you know any of the preferences that are really important to you, you can see what schools match that. So I really strongly encourage that MCIS website. There are many others. Big Future is another one that's set up very similar to MCIS, where you can plug in your preferences, and it'll match you to certain colleges. And of course, meet with me if you have more questions or you're not sure, and we can sit down and do this together. We just might have to do it virtually for a while. Hopefully in the fall, we'll be able to meet again. But if not, just let me know. We can set up a time to meet virtually and kind of go through some of these things together. Okay, so when it comes to actually applying, there are different admissions and different terms, and I think it's really helpful that you need to understand when you're actually applying to the colleges. So when we talk about regular admissions, most colleges fall under this type of category, and what that means is they have a certain deadline, and then they review every single application that comes in by that deadline, and you kind of all have an even share if you're in by that deadline. There are other places that maybe do something called rolling admissions. So it's a first come, first serve. So the first so many people that apply and that meet whatever set criteria that school has are the first ones to get in. So it doesn't matter if you're the most outstanding student. If you apply really late in the process and there are rolling admissions, you still might not get in just because they've already filled their capacity. So again, kind of having an idea of what you're thinking about, what you're wanting, and knowing when those deadlines are pretty important. There are other schools that might have open admissions, and that is usually going to be like a community college or a technical college, maybe a smaller private school. And then what that means is basically you have to just complete your high school, you have to earn your high school diploma, and as long as you have that, you would be admitted to the college. Now, I will like to say that is different than course placement. So a prime example would be Western Technical College. Everybody can be admitted to Western Technical as long as you have your high school diploma. However, you might still need to take different placement tests or get different grades in certain courses like chemistry to actually get placed into programs they offer. So there's a difference there. But to actually get admitted to the college, you just need to have your high school diploma. There are some other early admissions options to be aware of as you're, looking and applying to schools. One is called early decision, and you have to be a little bit careful about that one because that means if you apply and select the early decision to a college, you are binding yourself to go to that school. So if you're saying, I want to go to your school so much that I'm going to do an early decision, if you get in, you essentially have to go to that school. You are bound to go to that school. So it's a binding contract that you apply by, saying this is your number one option. And if you get in, you're not considering anything else, and that's where you want to go. So that's early decision. Early action is somewhat similar. However, it's not quite as binding. So you might get an early response to your application, because usually they have earlier deadlines for early decision and early action. That's why they're called early. But you maybe don't necessarily have to commit until later in the spring. Many times there's a commitment date of May 1st. But you do still have some opportunity to get out. Say another school opportunity arises or plans change, you can get out in early action. So a lot of people ask, well, what's the benefit of applying to early decision or early action? Well, one, if you're really, really set on a school and you know absolutely hands down that is the perfect option for you, it does look good on your application to say, I would like to do early decision. I am so set. It could, reflect well on your application, that college, that you're so determined to go to that specific school, and it could maybe help in the admissions process. It just shows that you are, on top of things and planning early, which again can just maybe help. But I would just say a word of caution about the early decision and early action. If you're at all hesitant, I would be cautious to actually select one of those options unless you 100% know those are the schools you want to go to and you don't think you'll change your mind. So actually applying to college, I can't emphasize enough how important the college application deadlines are. Again, in this COVID world we live in, I think there's going to be some changes to when the deadlines come. They might give you some more time, but you still have to make sure that you are meeting whatever deadline the college sets for you. It's so important. If you're trying to apply later, you're probably not going to get in. Now, I say meet with admissions counselors from the colleges you're interested in. Even though we're not in the building and we're not meeting face to face, I know many admissions counselors are still available virtually. So I would say just contact the college again that you might be interested in or that you're getting information from, and ask to set up a virtual meeting with the admissions counselor. In the fall, when we're back in school, hopefully, when we do have admissions counselors coming to our school, they're always set on the counseling calendar, which is on that main counseling website that I showed you earlier. So, and again, if you're able, go visit colleges again. If you've narrowed down your list and you're not sure, if you're able to do another virtual tour, or hopefully, again, being able to actually step foot on the actual campus is good. Sometimes you may need to take the ACT again. For some of you who haven't even taken it the first time. So again, I think colleges are going to be a little bit flexible on that, but just make sure you know what they need. Is it a school that is becoming test optional, so maybe you don't need the ACT, or it is a school that still requires it, and when do I need to get the ACT by, and make sure that's done on time. So why I thought it was really important to share this now is a lot of the applications can be quite a bit of work, and in the summertime is a great time to start kind of catching up and starting this. When you get to school in the fall as a senior, there's a lot going on, things are pretty busy, so summer is a great time to do some of this work. As I think I came and talked to you guys this fall and shared some of this information, but if you haven't already started putting together like a senior profile or a resume, again, this summer is a great time to do that. It's a document that's going to list all of your activities, things you've been involved in, any volunteer work you've done, any sports, all that stuff, because those are the types of things that they're going to ask on your college application and eventually on your scholarship application, if you're somebody that's going to be applying for scholarships. So having all of that stuff written down can take some time if you have never started that yet. So summer, again, great time to start doing that. One of the attachments I'll include is a link to just a template for a letter of recommendation, or what we call their senior profile. And it doesn't necessarily mean that's the one you need to use or do, but it just gives you some general ideas of things to be writing down that will help to have all done ahead of time before you start working on your college application. So the college application itself, I would say start sooner than later. Most of them are actually online. Some have paper copies, but most schools would encourage or prefer that the students do it online. And many applications require essays. So again, this summer, If you have some schools in mind, go and see if their essays are out yet and start working on those so it doesn't all fall on you to happen this fall or winter when things are really busy back in school. Um, some applications may require letters of recommendation, or they might have the opportunity to include some letters, but they're not necessarily required for the application. And so if you have someone that you know you're going to ask to write a letter, I would say giving them as much time as possible is a good idea. Not that the teachers are necessarily going to complete it yet this summer, but if you were to reach out and ask them, say, hey, I'm just working on some of my stuff, and you're somebody that I would really like, if it's possible, if you could write me a letter of recommendation. I'll need it this fall. It gives teachers plenty of time to start thinking about it. And who knows, they might have some extra free time in the summer too, where they'd actually have more time to write a really, really nice letter, as opposed to the fall when we're all pretty busy. So give them plenty of time, ask politely. The senior profile resume I was talking about, it's really helpful if you give the teacher that, or at least give them some information about yourself or whoever it is that you're asking to write the letter. Many times teachers are great people, coaches, bosses, things like that, somebody that can speak to your skills. But they might know you in one capacity, but maybe they don't know you all in all the awesome things you do. So giving that senior profile is really helpful when you request a letter of recommendation from anybody. So another thing you might need to do when you're applying is submit your ACT scores. So if and when you're able to take those ACTs, and the college still may require that, you will have to submit ACT. Most colleges do require that they be officially sent from ACT. So that's why when you guys had registered to take ACT back in the spring, I strongly encouraged you to put the 4 colleges down, as ACT gives you 4 free reports. Even if you ended up changing your mind, you would at least get 4 free ones. If you have to log back in and ask ACT to send a score officially again, you'll usually have to pay a fee. So the application, there might be letters of recommendation, ACT scores. And then last, of course, you have to send your high school transcripts. And normally we just have a transcript release form that you can get in the guidance office. During this COVID time, we have been using an online service called Parchment. I'm not sure if we will have that in the fall, so just plan on knowing you'll have to sign a release asking us to send your transcripts wherever you are applying to. And then usually there's an application fee. Sometimes colleges will waive the fee for different reasons, or there's different times of the year that the application fee might be waived. A prime example is in October, there's a huge event that happens called College Knowledge Month, and many of the schools in Minnesota will waive their application fee for the whole month of October, or at least 1 week in October during that College Knowledge Month. So, that's all information that I send out to you as I get it. So keep an eye on that. But no, usually there's an application fee that has to be paid. So those are some things that you'll have to do for the college application process. There's also some different kinds of applications that can be a little bit confusing, and so I'd like to talk about those too. You might see something called the Common Application or the Coalition Application, and what those are, they're like platforms that many colleges use. So on the Common Application, you would go and submit all this information, and then you're able to actually apply to more than one college. You have to be a little careful because sometimes colleges still might have a couple extra unique things to their own school that you have to make sure you complete, such as a specific essay. But the nice thing about the Common App is it's all kind of there, and it does save you a bunch of time because you can use the same information more than once. You also can request your transcripts be sent, and I would upload them through the Common Application. Same thing with the Coalition app. Several school systems also have their own system application. So it's usually like a state system would have one system that you, again, like Common App, would fill out the information kind of all in one setting, and then you're able to go and pick the different colleges. So like the University of Wisconsin system has that, the Minnesota State Colleges and Universities has that. So you could apply to several schools kind of within the same application. There is a difference, obviously, between online, as I mentioned earlier, and paper. Most colleges nowadays really do prefer the online application. Some maybe don't even have paper anymore. If for some reason you really needed to do paper, you would just need to reach out and ask those schools. But I think the process goes quicker if you are able to do it online. So once you apply to the colleges and maybe you are accepted to the colleges, there's more steps you have to make sure you're following. So of course, I want everybody to be filling out scholarship applications. There are going to be a lot of scholarship applications. Your senior year, as we get them, we post them on the high school guidance office for any local ones that we are aware about. You maybe already just saw, we just had our scholarship awards night for our current seniors, and you can see, the many different ones that students applied for and received. So there's a lot of scholarships out there if you're willing to take the time to do them and look for them. The other important thing, which we'll spend a little bit more time talking about in the fall, is filling out the FAFSA form. This is a federal form that collects your parents' financial information and helps decide if you qualify for any financial aid. A super important thing. Again, in the fall, we usually have a speaker come in and that actually does financial aid, and so they can help you with that process. But just know that's something that you will need to do, and it opens up in October to fill out for you current juniors, to be seniors that would be applying for colleges for the following school year. Some colleges may require a mid-year transcript, so maybe you've already been accepted right away in the fall, but they want to know how you did first semester. If that's the case, again, you would just come and ask Mrs. Tessing or myself, and we would send a mid-year transcript after you've completed semester one. And as a senior, please, please, please don't forget that your second semester can really count. I know our poor seniors now with this COVID, it's kind of a new world, and I think colleges are going to be very understanding and flexible, especially for you current juniors, to see what your grades were like, and kind of give some understanding that it was a pretty tough time for everybody, but your grades are still important, especially second semester of your senior year. If you do any kind of schedule change your senior year, especially in the middle of the year, and you'd already applied to a college with a certain schedule and then you change your schedule, you do need to let the colleges know, because if they've already granted you admission, they want to see any of those class changes, because that could impact your admission. If you had applied with all AP and college level classes and got accepted, and then second semester you dropped all your college level or AP classes, they could come back and say, hey, we're no longer granting you admission because you applied with this and now you're taking this, and that changes things. Or they could say, if you did not do well your second semester senior year, again, we accepted you based on this certain criteria, you did not meet that second semester, and they could rescind their admission. And it has happened to students in our school, in our district, unfortunately. So again, take all semesters all the way to the end serious. And if you do need to change your schedule at all, make sure you're letting the colleges know that ahead of time. Again, this is kind of far down the road for you, but at the end of your senior year, once you commit to whatever school you decide on, we have to prove that you've finished high school, and we do that by sending one final transcript that shows you have finished, you have completed high school, you have earned your high school diploma. So that's something towards the end of your senior year we would talk about. Last thing, if you did receive any scholarships, please write thank yous. We've gotten feedback from that each year from certain organizations that it just doesn't look good when students don't thank them for the money they received in the scholarships. So a few pieces of advice from different admissions advisors that I've talked to over the years. Some I've already kind of addressed, but junior, senior year is really important. So please make sure you're taking rigorous courses and you don't slide on your grades, especially if you're applying to the higher end or more competitive colleges. As I just mentioned, colleges can and will withdraw acceptances. So really make sure you stay focused all the way to the end of your senior year. The essays, which is a part of some of the college application process, do really need to be taken serious, and they can be a difference between a yes and a no. I know many students who've applied that maybe didn't quite have the best grades, but they've had a really difficult situation that they dealt with, and they were able to speak to that in the essay, and that got them into the college that they were desiring. And so, don't have spelling mistakes. Let them know who you are. Tell your story in those essays, because that's the difference between you being a name in a paper and an actual person. they get to know you in those essays. So please take any essays you have to do for the application process serious. Use your English department, we can help you proofread and look at them. Just make sure you take them serious and do a good job on those essays. Another huge piece of advice is have a professional email. So I would assume nowadays most of you have a personal separate email from your school one, and I actually would recommend that when you're applying to colleges, you actually use your own personal email and not your school email, because you may not always have access to your La Crescent email. So please create a professional email. I'm not kidding, you guys. Some of the emails that the admissions people have told me about and how inappropriate, or just, maybe funny, but just not appropriate to apply to college with, swear words, things like that. So just make sure you have a professional email address. And with that, also a professional voicemail. This is a newer one that I've heard lately, where maybe a college admissions person is calling to follow up with a senior about their application, and their voicemail is something that students might think is funny, but it says, oh, I don't care, I don't really want to talk to you anyway. I've heard those before. That just doesn't reflect well on you as a student trying to get into college. So please make sure you're being appropriate, you have appropriate email, appropriate voicemail message, anything that's going to show you in a positive light and not a negative light when colleges are looking at you for admissions. If you are talking to any, admissions advisors or admissions counselors, make sure you're being polite and professional. Again, them seeing who you are does impact your admission sometimes. So, and then lastly, as we've told you many times over, make sure you're appropriate on social media, because some colleges now might check and look into your social media. Some scholarship programs might check and look into your Facebook and other social medias. So again, just make sure the things you're posting are good and safe and legal and all that, be appropriate in the things you're posting. So a few tips. Again, I talked about the financial aid a little bit, but with help, your parents will do the FAFSA coming in October. I've just listed a few of the things you might need when you fill out the FAFSA. Again, we'll have a lot more about this coming up in the fall, and then also know on the Guidance Office webpage, we have a ton of information if you are curious, or if parents have never been through this process, they can start looking at what it means and what they need to do. Again, the scholarships, if you go on the Guidance Office webpage under scholarships, that's where we would post any of those local ones I was talking about, any ones we find out locally. Also included in that are many other websites that will have scholarships available. It just takes a lot of time to go through and sort, but if you're willing to do the time, you could get a lot of money back, so it's worth it. Also, make sure you're checking any of the college or university websites. They usually have their own scholarships available, and there's certain deadlines, so make sure you're looking at their websites to know when their own scholarships are due for the schools that you're applying to and committing to. I'm going to include this Google survey in the email when I send out this video, but it's just a way for me to collect some information on you guys to know what you're thinking about, what your plans might be at this time. Don't worry, you're not committing to anything. It gives me an idea, and then if I get information on a certain college, I know I can pass it on to you if that's what you're looking for, or maybe in a certain area of interest. So it's just a helpful tool for me, so please fill out if you would. Again, I will include that in the email. Okay, before I leave, I just want to show you the website again real quick. I know I talked about it and there was a screen share, but I just want to be able to actually show you some of these resources. I've also attached them in the email, but here again is the Guidance Office webpage. And the one area I'm really talking about is this college and career page. On here you can see there is just a ton of information for you guys. So if you're not even sure where to start, this would be a really good place. It lists different colleges, kind of at least locally in our state and in Wisconsin to start. There's a lot of resources. Some of the ones I mentioned, like the, let me go back here a second, the senior year checklist is a really helpful tool. This kind of helps guide you through your senior year, some of the things I talked about and when you should be doing them. Here's a campus visit checklist. And although it's really directed at being on the campus, some of the questions and things they ask you or to think about are still really relevant and important. It's just you maybe aren't able to do it in person, but you can still do it virtually. here is the senior profile letter of recommendation request form. Again, this is just a template, gives you ideas of things to think about. But again, this information is usually asked in some way, shape, or form on college applications and scholarship applications. So summer is just a great time to kind of start filling that out. Feel free, I would recommend you do it on a Google Sheet. Don't necessarily write it out, because then you can add and modify as necessary. So again, just a template to give you some ideas. There's that again. Here's a college comparison worksheet. This is really helpful if you're really torn between some schools. So it allows you to check off, what the schools have, and then it's easy for you to go and compare, the different schools that you're considering, and it might help you make that decision. So that's also included. And so again, it's just, I want you to have as many resources as possible, as I know this is pretty overwhelming. I'm gonna get out of the screen share here for a second. But juniors, please know I am available to help you in this. I really miss seeing you guys, and I wish I could do this in person with you, but if not, we'll make do. Again, please know that you can schedule a virtual appointment with me, or we can wait till the fall. Please reach out if you have questions or are not sure what to be doing. So anyway, you guys take some time, enjoy this summer, relax, because I know it's been a really stressful spring, but also take advantage if you have a little extra time to maybe start thinking about and doing these things. So anyway, miss you. Hope you guys are doing well, and enjoy your summer. Bye-bye.